Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's write some more Leetcode today. Today we are solving questions with Brainpower. So the problem states that we are given a zero-index 2D integer array called questions, where each index in questions, it will have two values. The first value signifies points, and the second value signifies Brainpower. Feel free to read this paragraph if you want, but basically we can just approach this question as if we are taking an exam. So if you solve the first question, you will get that number of points, but then you will have to skip the next Brainpower number of questions because you will need to take a break. So if we look at this example, if you solve question 0, you earn 3 points, but then you cannot solve question 1 and 2 because the Brainpower is 2, so you will have to take a break on question 1 and question 2. And we want to return the maximum points that we can earn for the exam. So if we look at this example, the answer will be 5 because the maximum points you can earn is to solve question 0, skip question 1 and 2, and solve question 3, so you can earn 5 points in total from question 0 and question 3. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. One way that we can solve this problem is we can use dynamic programming. So we can set up an array and we'll call it DP, and it will be the length of the input questions array, and it will all be zeros with the exception of the last element. It will be the points available on the last index, and we will iterate from the second to last element all the way to the front. And at each iteration, we will first set the DP at that index to the number of points available at that index. And if the Brainpower can jump over to a certain index, then we will add the value at the DP of index plus the Brainpower plus 1 to the current value of DP at that index. And then finally, we will check is DP of index greater or is the DP of index plus 1 greater, and we will set the DP of that index to the greater of the 2. And then we will continue these iterations until we get to the front of DP, and then we will return DP of 0 as our result. So let's go over this example real quick. So first, we will have 2 points available, so that's why initially we set it to 2, and then we will look at the next index, DP of 4, so we set it to 4. It will need 4 Brainpower, so rest for 4 questions, which is beyond the end of the exam, so we just keep it at 4. And we check is 2 or 4 greater, and we realize that 4 is greater, so we keep it as 4. At the next iteration, we set DP of 1 to 4. It has 3 Brainpower, so 1, 2, 3, which is beyond the end. And then we check is 4 greater or 4 greater. They're the same, so we keep it at 4. And finally, we come to the end. The number of points we receive at that index is 3, but we can also rest 1 Brainpower, 2 Brainpower, and then come to the end of the index. We see there's 2 points available here, so we will add 2. So now it's 5, and we check if 5 or 4 is greater. 5 is greater, so we keep it as 5. And now we have come to the end of the iteration, so we can return 5 as our result. So the time complexity would be O of n, where n is a number of elements in the questions array, because that is the number of times we may need to iterate through. And the space complexity will also be O of n, because this DP array will take up to O of n space. So now let's get to the coding part. So first we will set DP to 0 times the length of the number of questions. And then we will set the DP at the end to the questions of I and 0, because that will be the number of points available at the last index. And now we will search through or iterate through the questions array, but in reverse order from the second to last element. So length of questions minus 2, minus 1, and minus 1. And DP of that index will set to the questions of I 0, and the skip or the number of Brainpower that we jump through will be questions of I 1 plus 1. And if I plus skip is less than the length of questions, meaning if we can jump to another question before the exam ends, then we will add that to the DP of I. So DP of I plus DP of I plus skip. And finally, we want to check is the DP at that index greater or is the DP at the index before greater. And then we will set that to the greater of the 2. And once we have iterated through it all, we can return the DP at 0. Let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. Hope this was helpful. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comments section, and I hope to see you all again soon.